final class of our course, we're going to be finalizing our final project dress. We're going to be streamlining her, putting everything together, adding those finishing details, and to really see what it looks like when it comes together. So, without further ado, let's get started. We are now in the home stretch. We are putting together our final dress, and I just wanted to just kind of refer you guys back to that original sketch we made in our fashion illustration course. The goal in mind was supposed to be this mermaid style dress with the gorgeous glitter tulle coming out as the train panel, and then we had some gold appliques. So I just wanted to briefly just go over some of the fabrics that I chose for this. Okay, so firstly I chose a matte satin fabric. So this is a satin fabric. It's a little bit crisp, and what I like about it is it offers a formal shine to it, but it's not so shiny that it can come off cheap. So that's what I chose as my main fabric for this. Just a solid satin fabric, matte, not too stiff, just something kind of borderline, nice flow and fullness to it. For my appliques, I have a couple of these appliques that I cut a little while ago. I love the beading on these appliques. I cut quite a few of them. They came on a long sheet of mesh, and I just went in and I showed you in that video some time ago when we covered textiles, I used my soldering iron and I went in there and I cut just a bunch of these because remember, I'm going to place those around this area of the dress. I wanted to make sure I had quite a few of them. Okay, for that panel that I'm gonna put in the back of it, that glitter panel, I have some of this gorgeous, almost polka dot like glittery tulle fabric. As you can see, it's a really pretty shine to it. So I'm just gonna cut this 1 or 2 times, and it's gonna give it this additional drama to the back of the dress, just this very sheer glittery panel. So those are just some of the fabrics that I chose for my garment. I also chose a very lightweight lining that you're gonna find in any formal section. You're gonna find the fabric and a corresponding lining. Is usually matte, is usually lightweight, and it's something that just sort of like complements your garment. You don't want anything too heavy. You gotta understand it's going inside of the dress, so you don't want anything that's gonna make the person sweat. So you wanna make sure it's lightweight, it's breathable, but that it's also compatible with the fabric itself. So it offers a similar stretch, and it has a similar pull to your main fabric. So now let's get into beginning to draft our bodice together. Okay, so what we've got here is actually our lining completely cut out and assembled for our bodice. I did not want to bore you guys with giving you detailed instructions on how to lay out your fabric and then place the patterns on top. It is exactly the way you did it when you did your muslin. As long as there's no changes that needed to be made to that muslin, you can proceed with either disassembling that muslin or using the actual paper pattern. I just want to fast forward it to, we've cut out our lining, we've assembled it the same way we assembled our muslin, and now we're going to go into what it takes to put together a structured solid bodice. So as you can see here, I have the bodice open and I have the raw edges facing up towards me. I use thread to mark where my zipper is going to be at the center back, because at this juncture, we don't want to directly mark on the fabric as much as possible. We want to make sure there aren't any markings because, again, we don't want that to show on our final garment. Okay, so as you can see here, if you notice at the back of the garment that there are these slashes that you didn't see before, so there are these seams. I basically took the dart and I opened it up and I pressed it down. I did the same for the side seams. I did the same for the front area. And then I just marked along my waistline. I'm gonna need that mark, and I just used a regular marking pencil, which is fine because this is the inside of the garment. You're not going to see this portion. Once those are all pressed out, remember in our couture techniques video, we went over very briefly how you put together a waist stay. So I just have a piece of elastic here that I use, and then I went to the store and brought corresponding, what we would call them, bra clips. Mine here are a little bit the tops are a little wider than this. It's not going to affect it too much, but ideally you want to make sure these are about the same width. So this came a little bit under, but ideally it should be the same width. It shouldn't affect it too much, but if you're talking about visuals, you want that to match. Okay. I marked here that waistline because I wanted to make sure that I knew exactly where to put my waist stay. So I wanted to make sure it was on the waist. So what I did was, as you can see here, I didn't assemble this part just yet. Flipping my bodice over, you can see that I input a waist stay in already. So what you want to do is you want to go in, and it's important that you know what direction is facing. The parts with the hook should be facing up towards you, and the parts with the eye should be facing up towards you, and the hook should be facing down. So when I'm placing this in, it should be facing down and within my side seam. I did mark off a 1/2 inch because that is where I'm going to connect it to my seam. So you want to make sure you have a couple of markings, that way you can easily put them within that seam. So here I also made a tailor's tack because it's also going to give me another match point to let me know, okay, I have my seam here. It's nice and pressed out. This is where the waistband is. This is folded down or facing down. And then I can actually go in and close up. If you want to baste, you can. If not, you can just go in and close that up. Just going to use a pearl head pen so you see it. Kind of place your finger there and just make sure that it is in place. Then you just go in and, like you would close the side seam, you place your pins in this perpendicular fashion and you just go in. Once you've pinned it, you can either baste straight down or you can just go right to the machine if you're comfortable and just machine sew. So again, your waist stay should be facing upwards. So don't get yourself confused and end up putting your waist stay, and you should not see the raw edges. So just make sure when you're entering your waist stay that the finished edges are what's facing you, and then the raw edges you see no waist stay. And that's just to remind you, because when you do put together the solid fabric bodice part of the garment with your lining, you're going to realize, like, if you did it wrong, it's going to be pretty obvious. Just another note about your waist stay. You want to make sure that it is, remember, this is going to be where my zipper is. So I can't have it, the point of a waist stay is to sort of cinch in the garment a little bit, but it's also to keep the top of this from kind of like dropping down. So you don't want it to pull too badly that you have this horrible scrunching. You don't want scrunch, you just want stay. So you want it to just be, when your zipper is in place, you just want it to hang over just a little. Maybe an inch, maybe a 1/2 inch, but not too much, because the point is just to cinch in that a little bit. You don't want it to pull in too tightly. You can always do a corset back within the lining, and that's another beautiful way to sort of finish it. But that's a different sort of technique. For just the waist stay, again, it's just these, you can use ribbon or you can use these elastic bands. Like I said, most dresses now, if you go into a department store, you go in, most of them have this elastic band. I like it because it's thick enough that it almost gives you a little bit of that corset type feel, because it's very taut and stiff. Okay, so I go to my machine and then I'm going to sew the side seams up, and we're going to move on to putting in our boning and what that looks like. Thanks for watching. Be sure to like and subscribe. Videos are uploaded weekly covering dressmaking, fashion, lectures, and more.